We're good. We're live.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. So, hello out there. These starts never get less awkward. Hello. Welcome everyone to the Elixir Kitchen. Thanks for joining us today for another exciting cooking and nutrition class. We have a great class for you today, so thank you. My name is Jeremy Capone. I am the wellness chef here, and as always, I am joined by
Stephanie Gladman. I'm the registered dietitian with the Elixir Kitchen program, and we have an exciting program for you in today's class.
Yes, absolutely. And what, Steph, what are we talking about today?
So today we're talking about those who have a liver transplant. So very often individuals come in who are malnourished, and there's lots of research to show that their prognosis after transplant is not favorable. So it's really important to be well nourished before surgery, and just as important to be well nourished after in terms of the recovery mode. So some of the hot topics that we are going to talk about are lots of protein, getting enough calories, eating small meals throughout the day, and hydration. So we'll talk about all those things as we go through the different recipes in today's class.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, and today actually we partnered with the Center for Living Organ Donation at UHN, and we are actually super excited that we were able to chat with Dr. Gonzalez oncology. Actually record a little message talking a little bit more about what he sees with liver cancer patients, and like Steph said, some of the things that
My name is Gonzalo Sapisochin. I'm one of the transplant surgeons and liver surgeons here at UHN, and it's great to be able to be with you guys today. My main practice is on, as I mentioned, on liver transplantation, and I deal with, malignancies of the liver, mainly liver cancer, what's called hepatocellular carcinoma. And this is a cancer that arises, on the cells of the liver, mainly on these cells called hepatocytes. And it's a pretty aggressive cancer. It actually represents the sixth most common cancer worldwide, and it's actually, the number of patients we see with liver cancer is increasing. It's increasing worldwide, but certainly it's increasing here in Canada and in Toronto. When a patient is diagnosed of liver cancer, there's treatments that are potentially curative that we can obviously offer and cure patients, and there's treatments that are offered to increase life and actually don't cure but can extend life. In terms of treatments that are curative, when tumors are single and very small, we can sometimes burn them, something called ablation. And in that case, the patients can do very well. If not, the other option is to operate and resect these tumors, take them out. And this is only for patients that their liver function, their liver is preserved. And the other treatment when the liver is not preserved and the tumors are confined to the liver would be to do a liver transplant that basically treats both the cancer and the underlying cirrhosis, which is, the main risk factor to develop new tumors, and actually the soil where those tumors grow. In general, if we're able to remove the tumor or to do a liver transplant, the chances of the patients being alive 5-10 years after the surgeries around 70 to 80%. However, there's a big difference between transplant and resection because, as I mentioned, when we take a tumor out, we're leaving behind the main risk factor on this soil where these tumors grow, which is the liver, the inflammation of the liver. And when we do surgery, the chances of the tumor coming back are around 70%. And when we do transplant, actually, the chance of the tumor coming back, given that we're changing the liver and there's a new liver, is around 15%. So there's no doubt that transplant is the best treatment option for this patient. However, transplant is not for everyone. Transplant is a very big operation, and we need to make sure the patients are healthy enough to undergo this treatment. But if patients are candidate for transplant, and mainly, as I mentioned, are patients that usually are under the age of 70, or if they're older, they have to be very healthy, and the tumors are confined to the liver, then we can offer these patients a liver transplant. You know, living donation really poses an advantage in these patients because that wait time kind of diminishes. Obviously, living donation doesn't happen the day after we see a patient, but definitely the time we need to work up these patients is shorter. And we've actually demonstrated with our own data that if you have a living donor, you know, the chances of a patient with liver cancer, again, confined to the liver, is better than if they go into a waiting list. So we really, you know, tell all our patients that living donation is a very good option in this setting. Obviously, when we do surgery for patients with liver cancer, it's very important that patients get to surgery very healthy. And the diet, you know, and nutrition plays a very important role. You know, a surgery is a very aggressive thing for the body. So it's very important to be, you know, very, very well hydrated, you know, weeks before the surgery, having very good and healthy food with a lot of vegetables, fruit. Usually protein is very important for this condition, and obviously for the recovery after surgery, even if it's resection or if it's a transplant, you know, the diet has to be very healthy to make sure that patient recovers very well. And, you know, it's pretty similar, but it's what we know as good and nutrients and macronutrients. And these are basically, you know, grains and vegetables, fruits, and obviously keep very hydrated. So anyway, this is what I wanted to share today with you, and I'll be happy to see you in the future. Thank you.
All right. So for our first recipe, we figured we would be seasonal and have a recipe that was more as the weather turns to be cooler, something that is more comforting. So we decided to make a soup. And again, as I mentioned, you know, before transplant surgery or after, some of the key nutrition elements that we want to focus on are being well hydrated and getting enough protein. And this soup is super hearty, and I'll let Jer take it over and show us what it's all about.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Steph. And again, thank you again to Dr. Sapasochin for sharing that with us. This will be posted on our YouTube channel later, so you can always check it out afterwards. Yeah, right off to the first recipe. This is definitely much more of that comfort food type of recipe. And we're going to be making a turkey kale and shiitake mushroom soup. So focusing on a lot of umami there, a lot of flavor with the shiitake. But in terms of the protein, we're going to be using some turkey. Now, I know Canada, we're coming right off of Thanksgiving, so you might have some leftover turkey. Maybe you have some leftover turkey bones or stock that you've made, which is perfect. You can go ahead and use that. I'm going to show you how to make just a really, really simple, quick turkey stock. And then, again, if you don't have the time to do that, you can just use a low sodium chicken broth or chicken stock for this, okay? So the first thing that we're going to do is you can take some bone-in chicken breast or bone-in chicken thighs, whatever you can find in the grocery store. Preferably if it has the bone in, that's going to give you a lot more flavor in your stock. And we're going to add that to our pot with some carrots, maybe some onions, some garlic. Keep it simple. And then for this particular stock, we're going to be adding some dried mushrooms, okay? So some dry shiitake mushrooms in here, which is going to give it a ton of umami, a lot of savory flavor, okay? And with these ingredients, we're going to cover it with cold water and then just let it simmer for about 3 hours, okay? And that's what I've done here in advance, and I'll try to bring it down a little closer so you can see what's going on right here. So this has been simmering for a little over 3 hours now, but we have this super delicious, super flavorful, rich turkey stock, okay? And we're going to use this as the base of our soup. You can definitely make a massive batch and then go ahead and freeze that afterwards. But it is going to be extra tasty. Again, extra step, you can go for like a low sodium stock as well. Okay, so that's set up, ready to go. Now we're going to get into the soup. And for the soup, we're going to be using, like I mentioned, some shiitake mushrooms, which are super, super flavorful, bring a lot of richness, a lot of depth, a lot of umami, which we always love to say in our kitchen. And to prep them, it's pretty easy. What we're going to do is take the cap like this, clean them off really well, give them a nice little brushing, a nice little wash. And the stem on the shiitake, unlike some of your other mushrooms, tends to be really, really fibrous, very woody. So that we're going to actually want to remove, okay? You can clean them up and actually use them in your stock for sure. It's going to give a lot of flavor, but they're just really way too chewy to actually add into the soup itself. Okay, so we're going to remove that. And then for the small caps, you can leave them whole. Anything that's bigger like this, we'll just give like a very, very rough slice, nothing too thin. Go. So now we're going to jump over to that pan cam. Okay. Oh, actually, hold on. One more thing. Garlic. Garlic, we're going to want to slice here. So you can roughly chop it. I'm going to just thinly slice it. And I'm adding 2 big cloves. The garlic is obviously going to add a ton of flavor here. All right, beautiful. So that's going to go in first into our pot, medium heat with a little bit of oil. You can use olive oil, you can use grapeseed oil, canola oil. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and add that into our pot here. We're going to start off with the garlic. Okay, and again, medium heat. Start to sizzle. If you have some onion, you can go ahead and throw some of that in too. I have a little bit here. So I'll add a little bit of onion.
Yeah. And I think that what really is important here is making things very flavorful. So you might find that you don't have an appetite to eat. So that's why suggesting to have small little meals throughout the day is super important, because it allows for your appetite to kind of get stimulated, and it's not overwhelming to have so much food all at once. So flavor is really, really key here. Now, on the other side, if that onion smell or the garlic doesn't agree with your tummy or makes you feel like nauseous, then totally avoid it. It is a little bit of an experiment. Everybody's different.
Okay, so I added the mushrooms to the pot as well. And I'm going to add just a small pinch of salt here. Okay. And then we're going to give that a little stir. Just like this. Again, nothing fancy. We're not doing anything super challenging here. We just want to start to warm up some of that garlic with the onion, get the shiitake going. It should be, the hardest part here is the broth, okay? And if you've made it from scratch, that's going to take the most time. Otherwise, this shouldn't take too much time at all. And because we've made our broth from scratch, anything that you're adding into, so if we use the whole chicken breast or if we use some chicken thigh, what you want to do is remove it after and then just shred up the meat, and that's what we're going to actually add back into the stock. Again, if you have some leftover turkey or some leftover chicken, roasted chicken from the night before, make it easy for yourself, okay? You don't have to go ahead and cook it all over again. Just use some of that leftover chicken, shred it up, and put it into the pot. Now, when we're talking about food safety, for poultry, for any leftovers, really, doesn't matter what it is really, really important that you reheat your leftovers to the point where they're steaming inside, okay? I know oftentimes, you eat right out of the fridge. I've been caught, eating cold pizza. Who doesn't love the all cold pizza? But it is really, really important for food safety that you do reheat those leftovers. So especially when we're using something like a meat product, like leftover cooked chicken, leftover cooked turkey, we're going to be adding it back into the soup. It's going to be simmering in the broth, and it's going to bring it back up to temp so that it's food safe. Okay, really, really important. So I'm going to go ahead and add that to the soup now.
Yeah, and then just on that note, food safety is really important. Okay, so there's multiple things you want to make sure that your poultry is cooked appropriately. I sometimes get questions asking if it's okay to have sushi or raw fish, and the reason being is you want to play it safe. Okay, because when certain foods are in different temperatures, there's the ability for bacteria to grow. And when you are going through treatment or have had a big surgery, your immune system is compromised. Okay, so we often really want people to be careful in order so that they could heal appropriately. So cooking any type of meat to adequate temperatures, using a thermometer is really important. For any of those vegetables or even fruit, you just want to make sure that you wash it appropriately. Hot water is fine. If there's something that has like a thicker skin with the ability for dirt to stick to it, you might want to use a brush for that.
Perfect. Okay, so we have our garlic in, we have some onion, we have our shiitake mushrooms, we have the leftover shredded turkey. Now for the kale part, this is what you want to add closer to the end, okay? Now kale is pretty hardy, it's pretty hardy leafy green, so it can withstand a little bit more time with heat without it getting like too soft and sort of getting mushy and breaking apart. So any kale will work. I didn't have kale and I found this cabbage. So cabbage is also, kale is part of the cabbage family. Cabbage will also work in this recipe. So this is a purple Napa cabbage. It was just too like vibrant and pretty in the grocery store for me not to pick. So we're gonna add this instead. But again, any leafy greens will work here. And for this, I'm just gonna go big, rough chunks, okay? So you have nice big pieces of that cabbage floating around. Okay, and we're gonna add this to our pot.
Nice, really colorful. And just on that note about the protein that you're using. So in this case, we're using poultry, but any type of protein is really important. Especially after treatment and in that or during treatment and during and after the recovery phase. So getting enough protein can help you build a healthy immune system, right? As long as that poultry is cooked appropriately, help fight infection and recover more quickly. Okay, so there's tons of sources of protein. So some of the animal-based ones are things like turkey, fish, eggs, any type of dairy, so yogurt, cheese, milk. But you could also certainly find it in non-animal products like plant-based proteins like nuts and seeds, pulses, and so on. So it's really up to you. But I always encourage people with every meal, like every time they eat a snack or a meal, to make sure that there is protein, really making sure that you're making every bite count.
Perfect. So that's pretty much it. We just covered it. Now you can see here, we just covered it with our stock, our turkey stock from scratch. And that is pretty much it. You can let it simmer on low heat for a little bit longer if you like. These mushrooms will take up quite a bit of heat. Mushrooms will actually cook to a certain point and it's really not going to break down much further than that. So you can let this simmer for another 20 minutes if you like. But as soon as it's brought up to a small boil, you can remove it from the heat. You know that the turkey is reheated enough and you are ready to season and serve. So can you see that? Is it really bright? Can you see that, Steph?
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Really nice color from the purple cabbage too. So right there. See, it's brought up to a boil. So now I can reduce the heat to like a low simmer, or even return it or even take it off the heat, and it's ready to serve. So there we have it. Our first recipe.
Yum. It looks delicious. And the other thing I wanted to add here is, it's really important to stay well hydrated. Okay, so and reason being, your body is made up of at least 70% of water, right? So your blood has all this water in it, and it's carrying tons of nutrients all to the cells, to the muscles, right? So that you could have energy, that you could be well nourished. So you really want to make sure that you are hydrating appropriately. Now, a lot of times we think like, oh, water is a good source, which it is. I'm not discounting that. However, there are other sources of fluid. So a soup, right? That's made primarily of water. So fluid. So that counts as well. You could have smoothies, milks, any type of milk alternative, juice, right? If you want to flavor your water, you can do that as well. So really important to kind of make sure that you're getting enough throughout the day. And, I know that Jared didn't necessarily add too much fat, like olive oil to this mix, which is fine. But again, if you notice that you're not someone who's eating too much and you want to make sure that you're getting enough calories, you might want to add a couple of tablespoons or teaspoons of olive oil, just to bump up that protein in your dish, or even a powder. That's just something to consider as well.
Perfect. Awesome. If you have any questions, by the way, we're streaming on YouTube. If you haven't noticed, you're here, so you probably know. We have our chat box open. So if you have any questions about the recipes, you can absolutely ask us. Right at the end, I actually squeeze a little bit of lemon juice in there, just as a little bump of flavor, which is always really nice. So first recipe down, that's our turkey, kale, and shiitake mushroom soup. Now we're going to be moving on to our next recipe. This is a nice little side veg dish, which we're doing a little spin on. So we're going to be making some roasted Brussels sprouts, which is pretty simple in its own right. Oh, we have a question. Sorry. Difference between soup versus broth versus stock. Throwing the hard hitting questions here. Well, soup would be, I guess, the finished product, like the broth with other ingredients in there. And then the definition of stock versus broth can get a little finicky, but generally speaking, stock is made with bones, with animal bones, whereas broth is usually made with, if it's animal-based broth, then it's like ground meat. So broth, you can make a beef broth with like ground beef, or chicken broth with like ground chicken. But if you're using just the bones with some veg, then it would be stock. Hope that clarifies things. It gets confusing when you're talking about vegetable broth and stock because there are no bones. And so some people call it stock, some people call it broth. Who cares? They're just terms. But hopefully that answers your question. Okay, so jumping into the next recipe, we're gonna be making some roasted Brussels sprouts. Very, very tasty. And we're going to be adding a little crunch to it. And we're going to be making a savory granola.
Yeah. So really important. You do want to make sure that you're getting your vegetables. So we always talk about kind of like these balanced plates with lots of color. So obviously, like each color is a clue to the different antioxidants, anti-inflammatory, phytonutrients that you're getting. And you do want to make sure you get a variety. Each color has a specific name, and that doesn't really matter. You just want to make sure you get a variety of colors. So I always tell people, like, just assess kind of, where you're currently at. And if you notice that you're getting too many yellows and reds, well, then it's time to add a little bit more green into the mix. So like Jared said, Brussels sprouts, I mean, it feels like it's more of a seasonal vegetable, which is awesome, more hardy. But again, we want to make sure that we are adding adequate amounts of protein. So like I said earlier, whenever you're eating a meal, a snack, you do want to make sure that you're incorporating healthy fats and proteins with this as well. So I would say that this crunch is like a topper to boost the making every bite count. So kind of really not only boosting the flavor and the kind of fun in the mouth, but also to increase the amount of calories and protein that you're getting.
Awesome. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to start off with our granola. Now, we've made like very tasty, like sweeter granolas before, but this one is going to be on the savory side. And so this is really nice to, like Steph said, you can use this as a topper in salads or on top of soups or on top of like fish, roasted fish, or veggies like we're doing today. And because it's savory, it's going to sort of add to that depth of flavor, that richness, and it won't seem too out of place. Okay, so bring it back down here, show you what we have for our granola. This is completely up to you, but what we like to do is start off with your oats. Okay, so large flaked oats here. These are the pressed oats, old-fashioned, I guess you can call them, that you can find. About a cup of those oats, okay, that's our sort of whole grain there. And then for the nuts and seeds, it is really sort of carte blanche, do what you want, whatever you have in the house. You can use pumpkin seeds and hemp seeds, chia seeds, and then any nuts as well. So for ours, I have some almonds here, some chopped almonds. I have some sunflower seeds here, and I have some sesame seeds, which I love as well. And they just add a nice bit of flavor to this dish, okay? So any mix of nuts and seeds, about 2.5 cups worth. Again, I'm not really measuring this because I want to kind of show you what to look for when we make it, okay? So mix some nuts and seeds and oats. And then to that, we're going to start off with a little bit of maple syrup for sweetness. You can add honey as well, as long as it drizzles and it's not like that honey that's sort of hard and been in your cupboard for probably a year, but should be able to flow easily. So we're adding about 1.5 tablespoons of maple syrup. So yes, it's going to add a little bit of sweetness, but this is also going to help to give us that crunch that we want with our granola. And then this is where things maybe start to get a little strange. So we're adding a little bit of olive oil, about 1 tablespoon to 1.5 tablespoons for this. And then we're going to add a little bit of soy sauce, okay? About 1 tablespoon of soy sauce. Again, this is going to add that big umami, that big savory, salty punch. And then we're going to add some dried herbs. So I have any dried herbs would work really well. You can even add different dried spices. You can add ground turmeric. You can add garam masala. You can add cumin, coriander. Like really, really kind of play with this and experiment. And that's it. So we're going to stir that up. And what we're looking for here is that all of our nuts and seeds and oats are coated evenly and have a nice bit of shine to it, okay? And that would come from the maple syrup. And if we look here, I don't know if you can see how they're a little glossy. That's exactly what we're looking for, okay? If they still look very dry, then just add a little bit more maple syrup. If they look like there's a lot of liquid pooling in the bottom of your bowl, then add more oats and nuts and seeds to kind of soak that up, okay? So again, not really measuring anything, but just so you know what to look for. Once we get to this point, it's going to go onto our baking tray lined with parchment paper. Absolutely use parchment paper for this. This is going to give us that non-stick, okay? We don't want to have it stick or burn on your pan, okay? So use that non-stick. Beautiful. And just like kind of spread it out as best you can. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're just going to flatten it, let it sort of toast evenly as much as possible, okay? And then this is going to go into the oven, 350 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes, okay? Start looking at it at about 15 minutes. It should be nice and golden brown, and that's when you want to pull it from the oven, okay? So that's going to go in. And now I'm going to show you our Brussels
And just
sprouts.
on that note, this is a really great thing that you could put on top of salads. Like you don't even have to put it on these specific vegetables, right, Jer? Like there's so many different options that you can do.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. That's the beautiful thing about it. And because it has a pretty long storage life, like after it's toasted, you can throw it in a freezer bag, stick it either in the pantry or even in your freezer, and then add it to, yeah, soup, salads, roasted fish, carrots, whatever you like. Okay. So now we're gonna work with our Brussels sprouts. Okay. Again, coming off of Thanksgiving weekend, you may have had your fill of Brussels sprouts. We love Brussels sprouts in our house, so we, try to eat them any chance we get. And what I like to do, one of my favorite ways to prep them is just wash and peel the outer layers. Anything that's sort of bruised and scarred, and you can remove that. Trim the bottom. Okay, so again, that will be, the rough part. Just trim a little bit off the bottom, and then cut them in half, just like this. Okay, find that they cook a lot faster because they're obviously cut in half. They're going to take less time, and they roast up beautifully when they have like a nice flat surface like this, or a nice flat side to it. Okay, so to season this, like I'm keeping it super simple because we have that really flavorful granola. So I'm just adding just a little bit of olive oil, and we'll maybe hit it with just a small pinch of salt, maybe even some black pepper. That's it. Toss it up. Okay. And then do this after your granola is done, because you're going to want to crank your oven up to 450 degrees. Okay. So really, really hot, because we want to get some nice color, and we don't want to cook it for too long, okay, because we still want to retain the crunch. Okay. So 450 degrees for, again, keep an eye on it. It might take about 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, just until you get some nice color. And that's it. Now I'm going to show you how to put it all together. So Brussels sprouts out of the oven, looking beautiful, really nice and caramelized, crispy, and that is just from a high oven, right? No need to blanch them, didn't need to fry them. Just roasting in a high oven. Get the really, really nice crispy Brussels sprouts. Okay, so we will start there. I'm gonna bring over our other cam too. Maybe you can get a better shot at that. Awesome. Try that. There we go. There we go. Okay, roasted Brussels sprouts, beautiful. And now our granola. Again, after about 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, you're going to get this beautiful roasted granola. And this is what I love about it, because this is what the maple syrup does, is it keeps everything, holds everything together and gives you these beautiful sort of golden clusters that you can break up into little pieces like this and throw on top of your dishes. Again, this is even like a nice little savory snack on its own too. I'd probably just snack on this on its own.
Yeah, for sure.
Sesame seeds and pumpkin seeds, really, really nice. Okay, so to finish our dish, we're gonna top it with some of those crunchy pieces. Has the sesame seeds and the oats. Really, really nice and tasty.
You don't have to do it only on Brussels sprouts, right? Like you could do this over roasted peppers or, right?
Yeah.
Like anything, right?
Yeah, roasted carrots. I think, again, this is, like you mentioned, like just from having all the nuts and seeds and the oats, like it's going to be super healthy. But from a textural point of view, anytime you feel like you're lacking a little bit of crunch, you can always utilize something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Like even like pureed soups, like a simple pureed sweet potato soup, and then add a little bit of this savory granola crunch on top would be so tasty.
Totally.
So
yeah.
A little bit of that. And then to finish it all off, we're going to add just a touch of grated Parmesan cheese. This is optional, but why not? Just a little bit. And we are using an aged cheese here. So Steph, like for food safety reasons, and I guess for people that are immune compromised, what are the cheeses I guess we want to avoid?
Yeah, you really want to make sure everything is pasteurized and that there's no like mold. Like a blue cheese does have kind of natural mold that, people might eat, but that's something that you really want to take note of in terms of cheese, making sure that it's in your, stored appropriately as well. Um, and yeah, so really making sure that you have like pasteurized indicated on the label. Hard cheeses such as cheddar, Swiss, Parmesan are okay, but anything that's raw or unpasteurized dairy foods like a soft or semi-soft cheese like a brie, a camembert, like I said, blue cheese, those are the ones that you do want to avoid.
Awesome. Okay, so there we go. There we have it. Also, if you're using, like, you can do this on a baking sheet. If you're using a pan that goes into the oven, like cast iron, always remember that that handle is going to be very hot when you take it out. I guess it's another food safety or cooking safety tip.
Yeah.
Hold my hands a few times doing that. So
Yeah.
there we go. Beautiful, delicious, crispy Brussels sprouts with our savory granola. Awesome.
Hey. Thank you, Jer.
All right.
And I guess a cooking show or a class would not be complete without a delicious dessert. And again, to kind of go on this theme of making sure that you are incorporating proteins to the different meals that you're baking, we're kind of doing a play on a breakfast. So using pancakes. I love having breakfast for dinner time. But it's something that you could have for breakfast or a snack. And so we're going to bump this up again with some added protein. Again, this is really important. I'll mention it again. When people go in for transplant surgery, often the research indicates that there's many people who come in who are already malnourished. Right. So, and this is just the nature of the disease sometimes. And so really important to, get enough protein. And then even afterwards during the recovery, because protein helps with healing, it helps support a healthy immune system, right? So getting enough these and also providing you with energy. So making sure that we have enough. And now everybody's needs are different. So I would recommend somebody, if you're wondering, well, how much protein should I be eating? Speak with a registered dietitian who could create that kind of amount for you. Just to give you an idea, it might be like your weight in kilograms and taking 1.2 to 1.3 grams per kilogram. So, up to you. Please do the math. Otherwise, definitely speak to a registered dietitian to calculate that for you and to provide you with the options of how much protein is per serving in the different foods.
Perfect. Okay, we're going to get right into this recipe. I'm just answering a couple questions. So one was, can you repeat what we added to the granola? So I typed it there, but we added some oats, sesame seeds, sunflower seeds, almonds, and then for the dressing, it was olive oil, maple syrup, and soy sauce. And then we had some herbs in there. These recipes will also be posted tomorrow on our YouTube channel. So you can always follow that there. But hopefully you got that. And then what temperature for the Brussels sprouts? So 450 degrees Fahrenheit for the Brussels sprouts, really high heat, and just keep an eye on it. So it took me about 15 minutes to get it to where I wanted, okay? Yes, jumping into our pancake. So like Steph talked about, this is a nice little, I guess, breakfast, could be like a treat, right? And we're doing something a little bit different here. So we're going to be making some sweet potato pancakes, and we are going to be making them sort of a little more high protein to really highlight a lot of what Steph has already been talking about, to add some more protein and ways in which we can add some more protein. So bring it down here. For our pancakes, again, this is not going to be your typical pancake. We're using a sweet potato, so roast the sweet potato in the oven until it's nice and soft, okay? For me, it took about an hour at 375, just until you can feel by pressing on it that it's nice and soft, and you can see how easy it is to peel at this point. And it's super rich and caramelized. So that's exactly what we're looking for. You can also use pumpkin puree from a can. That will work just as well in this, okay? So if you have some sweet potatoes, go for it. They're so tasty and really, really easy to cook. But otherwise, there's a lot of canned pumpkins in the grocery store these days, so you can probably use that as well. Okay, so we're going to peel this, and we're going to add it to our blender here. All right. We're just getting all kinds of messy, so that's right. All right, and then to that, we're going to add about a cup of egg whites. Now, we're using these pasteurized egg whites. This is what you would typically find in the grocery store. In where they have the eggs, you can find these boxed versions of egg whites. These are pasteurized, okay? So yes, we are cooking these fully, but sometimes with pancakes, the center is not like fully, completely done all the time. And if you're using raw eggs, it could be a little bit of a risky situation unless you're temping every single one in the middle to make sure it's cooked all the way through. Okay, so these we are cooking through, but it is also pasteurized for extra safety. Okay, so we're adding about a cup.
Yeah, and just on that note, like if you are using eggs in a dish, you want to cook until the middle reaches a safe temperature. So it's 74 degrees Celsius, so that you might, use like one of those cooking thermometers. If you cook an egg, you want to make sure that the yolk is firm. And any type of like eggnog that you might have, the holidays are coming up, right? You want to make sure that it is heated to 71 degrees Celsius. And then anything that's store-bought, like a store-bought eggnog, you do want to make sure that it is pasteurized. So again, just looking for that description on the label is really important in terms of making sure that you are being food safe. So when your immune system is compromised, you might not be able to fight against any type of bacteria growth or on food or food poisoning, right? So you do want to make sure that everything is, that you're going according to guidelines.
Okay, so we have our sweet potato in here. We have our egg white in here. So 1 cup of each, okay? So the sweet potato, this is about a medium sweet potato, but you want to level it off to 1 cup. 1 cup of the egg whites. And then we're going to add just a pinch of cinnamon. This is for flavor. So again, not necessary for the pancake. If you don't like cinnamon, you don't have to use it, but we're going to add a little bit. And then we're going to be adding 2 big tablespoons of ground flax, okay, to this. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to help to firm the pancakes up. There is no flour in these pancakes, okay? It's all pretty much just the sweet potato and the egg white, okay? So the flour would typically firm it up. It would prevent it from being too runny, and it's going to give you that sort of structure. Here, that's what the flax is going to do. Okay, it's going to help to soak up any of that excess moisture, so that we don't have to have like a really runny pancake or something closer to like a crepe batter. Okay, so we're going to add that ground flax in there.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
And just on that note, there's nothing wrong with flour. Like if you wanted to use that, you could do that as well. In terms of the measurements, I'll let Jer share what that difference would be. But in terms of ground flax seeds, there's really great healthy fats that you can find inside of them. And it's those omega-3 fatty acids. We cannot make that in our body, so we need to get that through food. And there are very important benefits in terms of heart health, reducing inflammation in the body for those omega-3 fatty acids. So, again, just sprinkling that onto a soup or in a salad, or in a soup smoothie, it's a great way to bulk or like add in some of those healthy fats through ground flax seeds.
Okay, so ready to blend. 4 ingredients, pretty simple. Blender on, turn it on medium. Sorry, probably should have said it was going to get loud. Just until combined, okay? Beautiful. That's our and that's our pancake batter. So really, really easy. And it's ready for the pan. I do see a question. We're going to get to you in a second. We're going to pour this into our pan. So it's a non-stick pan, and you can put a little bit of oil or a little bit of butter. You don't need too much. It is a non-stick pan, but I'm not taking any chances with pancake butter or pancake batter. Okay, and we're going to pour this out. About half a cup. We're going to make some decent sized pancakes. And again, it's not going to act like a typical pancake that would have flour, right? So if you need to pull in the edges a little bit with your spatula, just go ahead and do that. And we're going to cook these for about 1.5 minutes per side. How does it look there? Am I still live?
I can't see it, Jer.
I may have, what happened?
Oh no. Yeah, you might have to turn it back on.
Let's try this.
Oh no, the pan cam, the pancake camera.
Pan cam is down. I'm going to show you here. I'm going to bring my laptop over. This is what we do.
Pan cam is down.
Pan cam is down. We need a call. We need someone to call the phone again. Okay, so here we go. Hey, you know what? Pan cam goes down.
I think this looks great.
Bring the laptop over.
Yeah.
All right, so that's what we're looking for. So you can see the edges already starting to change color. So that's what we're looking for. And you want it at about 1.5 minutes. Now, when I make pancakes, I always try to give it a little shake every once in a while, just to make sure that we don't end up with a mess, okay? So give it a shake, make sure that we're moving, which is good in this case, and we'll be able to flip it, I would say in about another 60 seconds, okay? We'll come back in a moment. We'll bring it back.
So, Jared, did you see that this was like thinner kind of than usual pancake mix, or?
No, I would say it's pretty similar to
Awesome.
a regular pancake batter, but that's why you have to add the flax. If I didn't add the flax, it would be a little bit on the thinner side. Okay?
Gotcha.
And also make sure it's ground flax. Don't add whole seeds; that won't do anything. So we have
it's fine from a nutrition point, but it won't absorb the water, right? The flax seeds, ground flax seeds act like kind of like oats, right, where they soak up that water. Now, just on that note, if you are someone who wants to add even more protein to this, we have the pasteurized eggs, but for some people, adding a protein powder might be beneficial, or even like a nutritional supplement. So like Ensure, I know that on their website, they have great recipes to make all sorts of dishes with those nutritional supplements. I haven't seen one, but I could very much guess that you can find a pancake mix using those as well. So for some people, it's really important to they can't get enough protein through food. So making sure that you're doing that as well.
Okay. I'm going to flip this guy because I can already see it starting to turn. Remember, the first pancake is the test, okay? It's not always going to be your best one. That's where you're going to sort of figure out your heat. And we're going to flip this. This might be our first pancake flip on our YouTube live stream.
Whoa.
Oh, that's stuck. All right, so right at the back. Whoa, okay.
Ooh.
We got a flip here. A little dark, it's okay. See, that's why it's the test. So we're going to go a little less time on the next one. But that's pretty much what we're looking for, okay? And that's why you make some in advance, right?
Yeah.
There we go. There's our
It looks
beautiful
so
little sweet potato
good.
pancakes. This one's gonna take, again, another probably minute for the other side. But that is our last recipe. Now there was a question, is it generally better to buy pasteurized things in general? Steph, you can answer
Yes,
that.
good question. So in terms of food safety, yes. So pasteurization is a method that is for certain products. You will see pasteurized, juice, milk, cheese, eggs. And basically what it's doing is killing off all the bacteria. So it's heated at a specific temperature in order to get rid of bacteria that could form in these products. So yes, you do want to always make sure that you're buying pasteurized. Now, there's only a certain amount of certain foods that will be pasteurized. So, a juice, honey, liquid eggs. Obviously, if you're using regular eggs, that's okay. You don't have to buy liquid, but you do want to make sure that you cook it to the appropriate temperatures. So very often, if you're going to like a farmer's market or kind of a health food store with the practices that some people put in place is not as high as if you were to buy in a grocery store. So I'm not saying these things are not good, but if you do have a compromised immune system, like going through cancer treatment or you've received a transplant, my recommendation is to make sure that you double check the label. I think that, asking the person who's selling it to you saying, oh, yes, it's fine, might not be enough. So you do want to play it safe with pasteurized foods. Hope that answers the question. Let us know if there's anything else. Were there any other questions, Jer?
I think we answered them all.
Okay.
Anyone else have a question? Anyone else have a question before we wrap up? You can throw it in the box. We're just going to go over a couple other items for our next class. But that's our 3 recipes. Again, we'll be posting the recipes likely tomorrow or over the weekend, and you can see all the details there, and the video from this class will be attached to that recipe so you can follow along just in case you may have missed something. I want to thank Dr. Gonzalo Sapasochin again for his time.
Thank you.
Informing us a little bit more about what he sees in liver cancer patients pre and post surgery, and also to thank the Center for Living Organ Donation at UHN as well for partnering with us today. Thank you, Stephanie, as always.
Yes, thank you. Our next class is November 19th. So we meet here on the third Thursday of every month, 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock for a live cooking and nutrition demonstration. And this is our virtual classroom.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to enjoy my sweet potato pancakes. So
all right, enjoy.
We'll say farewell for now. And thank you guys for joining us. And a couple more comments, but no questions. Okay. Thanks everyone for joining us today. We will see you in November. Stay safe and happy cooking.
Happy cooking. Bye.
Bye-bye.